Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Police Story 3, Supercop, directed by Stanley Tong from 1992. So yes, we are back once again, racers from the channel. This time around, we're here for the third entry in the Police Story trilogy, Supercop, and this is one that I was really hyped to see for many, many years. And yeah, there will be a spoiler warning for this discussion. If you haven't seen this film, I simply recommend seeing it first, and then come out to this video, and we can go from there. We can talk from the comments, and yeah, celebrate cinema. So yes, with all that said, let's discuss my thoughts on this film, and yeah. This is one I was really hyped to see, and yeah, as I say, and it's a one that I probably heard about before. The other two, just in terms of Supercop, the name, and I think back when I was a kid, I heard about this, and yeah, I'd always been meaning to see this, and obviously the Police Story films, and been having a great time, kind of going through these films recently, and talking about them on the channel as well. It's been really fun to do, and yeah, this one, I would say straight away, is very, very different, and of course, this is not directed by Jackie Chan, of course, and he did return, to kind of as the action director, of course, choreography, and he done these massive, massive stunts in this film, which we'll get to, and of course, later on in the video, because it's next level stuff. But yeah, he also did produce the film, and it is directed by Stanley Tong, and despite the action being obviously choreographed, and directed by Jackie Chan, it does feel very different, this film, and it's got a different tone, a different vibe, really, and I think the actual plot, and it being about the drug cartel, and all this, and obviously as well Michelle Yeoh coming into the film as kind of this double act, which is really epic and cool to see Michelle Yeoh in this film, and they kind of team up, and Jackie Chan, his character, of course, is selected as a super cop, of course, to try and team up with Michelle Yeoh and take down this drug cartel. So it's a bit of a different plot, to the previous films, in the way it's done, and I think the actual storytelling, the narrative, it is different, and it's got some kind of darker moments. So it's not quite as comedy based at times, as the previous two, and it's a bit more kind of just action, kind of crime film in that sense, and it's got very different, kind of action set pieces, even though it is obviously directed by Jackie Chan, with the action and the choreography. So it is a different film, but despite all that, I think it does kind of have a nice kind of return to see these characters, various characters in the previous films, and Jackie Chan is just great in this film, and I love first act as well, where we have him kind of proving himself to all these men, to these kind of martial artists, and at first they're kind of suspecting that he won't be as good as he makes out, and he is actually really formidable, and that's a really great sequence there, and I think just Michelle Yeoh's kind of her character is showing Jackie Chan through all these different rooms, showing her men, and then he does kind of prove himself, and that was a really, really cool moment. And of course, Michelle Yeoh in this film, she is just great, and I think so epic in this film, and some really nice chemistry between the two of them, Jackie Chan and Michelle Yeoh, and that's what really makes the film at times. And we also have the return of Maggie Chan as May, although very different, kind of involvement in the plot in this one, and she's not really in the film too much compared to the previous two, but she is there, and it's nice to see her again in the film, and also Uncle Bill being played by Bill Tung, and it's really, really cool to see him again. It's a really hilarious moment, where he kind of does the dressing up, and he kind of goes disguise, in the first act as well, and that was really, really funny to go kind of undercover there, and to see him as well, opposite, Jackie Chan, and the kind of dramatic irony there was really hilarious, and I think Panther as well, is a really, really good character in this film, and it's a very, complex character at times, and I just really enjoyed, the first half of the film, the kind of plot and the way it was set up, although I think it did kind of go off a bit, and it became something where I wasn't as invested in, as the film went on, and I think in the middle portion of the film we've got some really bizarre moments, that kind of break the tone for me, and I think, in some ways, the actual drug cartel kind of plot here, and the way it's done is a bit too dark, actually. I just kind of broke that experience of the narrative, the flow, and kind of had me, kind of stopped in my tracks, kind of thing, thinking, well, that was a bit much there, just some of the really, dark stuff with the drugs, it's a bit, for this kind of film, it was a bit, off, and it didn't quite fit with this film kind of thing, and yeah, it was a bit too grimy for me, and I think just some of the parts, the whole kind of drug operations, and what's going on with the deals, and the kind of the way in which we're seeing all this with Jackie Chan and different characters in the rooms, but it's just stuff going on with the villains. I didn't really get fully behind all this, invested in that sense in this kind of element of the plot. It's definitely something that does bring the film down, and kind of grind the film to a halt at different points in the middle of the film. But in the final kind of act of the film, this is when the film is at its best, really, with the action and all the stunts this is next level. When I say next level, it really is. What we've got in this film, throughout, is just unbelievable stunts from Jackie Chan, Michelle Yeoh, and just the action in this film, is great. Although very different, as I've said, the way it's directed, and just I think the cinematography to this film and the editing as well. I think all of these elements, they are very different to the previous two. They haven't got as distinct, kind of style as those films, and it's not quite, for me as kind of enjoyable. It certainly is the first film, but yeah, in that final act, it's just something else. We have, of course, Michelle Yeoh kind of driving a motorbike onto a moving train, and this is just something else. It really is. I think just as well, behind the scenes, obviously, something to say. It was quite dangerous, and a lot of accidents occurred, and just really something else. And obviously, we have all this kind of sustained action in that final act, where it's just sequence after sequence, all strung together, and it's just a big, epic kind of action piece here for about 20 minutes, and then we've got the kind of the helicopter and Jackie Chan, kind of jumping onto the ladder there on the helicopter, and this is one of the most maybe the most insane stunt in cinema history, and just the whole kind of nature of this final act. It was something else, and it's definitely the highlight of the film, in terms of the action. But throughout, the action is just so good, and it's really the plot, some of the characters, and just the whole kind of tone of this at times, especially in the middle of the film, that really lets it down. And in terms of the action, just like the other two, it's just amazing. It really is epic stuff, the way it's put together, and the whole kinetic nature of this. And I think it's just something where we've got that the stuff that I love, but other elements I'm not really too big on, and it does drag in places. This one, and I think the whole kind of crime element of this wasn't really for me that much, but we do have some funny undercover kind of detective play here, and I think, as I say, when Uncle Bill kind of dresses up and we see him, and I was just thinking, I couldn't quite, kind of recognise him at first. Not too great at, recognising different characters. We've got costumes on and stuff, disguises, and so that was something where it took a while. But then when I realised, it was really hilarious to see that, and just really funny the way it's done. And I did want to see as well, though, more of Uncle Bill in this film. It's just really in the first act that he kind of shows up for those scenes, and then he's out of it really for the rest of the film, and other characters as well that don't really make a return from the previous films. In this, that's something that I did want to see more of. Maggie Cheung as well, how she isn't really in the film as much, that's something I wasn't as big on, and I think despite that, though, there's elements of all three of these films really where I think, that's my favourite kind of film in the trilogy, and I think that part of the film, that act of for example, the first act of the second film, that was probably my favourite in the entire franchise. And then overall the first one's really consistent, and it's really comedic throughout, and slapstick in that one, and just consistently the stunts and then the action throughout is just so engaging. And this one is really over the top, really kind of wacky. That is something this film has got going for it. It is more wacky, more zany, it's more kind of campy at times, and it's kind of more kind of over the top in places. Then again, it is a bit more restrained in areas, and it's a bit more kind of double down on the actual the plot, and this whole kind of drug cartel situation. So that's something where the actual balance of the film, the plot and the action and the comedy isn't quite as consistent as the other two, perhaps. And I also think the ending is a bit cut off, very abrupt. I know it's quite funny there, kind of the dialogue, the last kind of lines of the film, but I think just the way the film does go, cut off there. I've wanted to see a bit more wrap up, perhaps, of different characters, especially when for example, Maggie Cheung is not going to be in the other films in this franchise going forward, and this was the last one she was in, and I thought it was something I did want to see a bit more of. Obviously, May is rescued in the end. The outcome is really cool. She's saved, and the villains are defeated, and we've got that kind of wrapping up in a sense in different areas. But I wanted a bit more kind of closure there, in that final kind of scene, perhaps, and a bit more of something afterwards to see Jackie Chan, Michelle Yeoh interact in a certain way again, and that was something that was a bit missing from the film. But regardless of all that, it was definitely, as I say, a satisfying outcome, and I just think I wanted a bit more, in that ending there, really. But yeah, the final act in itself for the action is absolutely stunning, and just, as I say, next level stunts in this. And overall as a film, I did really enjoy this one. Again, you've got some points where I'm not really too big on, and the plot is a bit, kind of messy for me, and the whole kind of drug cartel, kind of, narrative to this, I wasn't huge on at all, and in places it was quite dark, and it broke the tone, and also it just wasn't really that investing in the way it was done. It wasn't that involving really for me. I was kind of detached from this part of the film. But regardless of that, the action and some of the comedy when it is there, and just The characters at times, really, really great. And yeah, definitely overall a really solid film and very enjoyable to see for the first time. So yeah, overall my rating for this film is a 71%. So a really solid score from me, and one that, as I say, I've really enjoyed overall. And I think there's parts of this film that I absolutely loved, particularly the action, of course. It's absolutely stunning, and I think the stunts of this, this. Wow, unbelievable, and I think just the way the film flows is a bit of an issue for me, places, but in terms of the action and the final act, that is just strung together in such a way that it has just this operatic nature to it, and it really is something else, and definitely some of the best, as I say, kind of stunts that I've ever seen, in a film, and just points in this are so kind of touch and go really, and I think just the way it's done is so fun as well in that final act, and I think, as I say, many things that I wanted to see more of in this film. For example, more of Maggie Cheung in this. Obviously, she does come back in the final act again, and that's when the film, the comedy does pick up again. But I just wanted her throughout, the film a bit more, and she's barely in the film really compared to the other, two films, and other characters like Uncle Bill as well. I did want to see more of him, but I think Michelle Yeoh and Jackie Chan together are great, and the action in this one is a real highlight. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this film. What do you think on this? It'd be great to hear in the comments your thoughts on this, your experience of this film. How does it compare for you to the other films in the trilogy? That would be great to hear in the comments. And I really look forward to seeing First Strike as well. I'll be watching that over the next few weeks. Of course, Police Story 4, and that'll be something that I look forward to massively as well, to see that, to continue the franchise really as well on the channel. And yeah, for now, let's discuss this film down below in the comments and celebrate cinema. So yes, as always, take care and thanks for watching.